can see the session is being recorded. So let's get this one starting. And welcome to the first presentation of today. Good morning to the guys and girls out in Australia. I think it's like 9 a.m. right now, and California is 4 in the morning. So people coming home from late night drinking. We had a good one. It's 1 o'clock right near here in a beautiful, almost sunny Copenhagen. The snow is going to come soon, but everything is good here. So let's get this started. This session normally takes me about 60 minutes. I cut down a little bit for it, but there's slides in the end. So if it gets a little bit too fast, you can go in, watch the slides again, and this is also recorded. So that's good. And oh, by the way, happy birthday both to Drupal 8, 1 year, and Dries, who is apparently 38 now, which still in my book makes him a young one. But anyways, this is 21 things I've learned about Drupal and Twig actually during the last 20 years of my work as being a professional front-end developer or web designer, as I call myself. And I've used 10 years of those in Drupal. The last couple of years I've been maintainer of one of the base themes of Drupal 8 called Classy, which is kind of the base theme of where we build all our classes and all that stuff on. So you're probably going to work with that at some point. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I run a small shop in Copenhagen called Theme Machine. It used to be called Geekway Out. The Theme Machine is a theme and design only shop where we only build and think in themes. We don't do consulting work, and more about that later on. If you want to follow the work I do, go into my website, morten.dk. It's my day-to-day blog where you can follow up on everything that goes on in my life, and especially more and more articles are going to be published around this whole Twig thing and what we did and how we're doing it, and how you can become better at doing stuff with Twig and the Drupal front end. My Twitter feed is actually the best place to be at MortenDK, where I might talk a lot about these things, yell, scream about things I find is not so good, and of course talk about my big passions besides Drupal, which is listening to old school metal and painting wargame miniatures. Yes, I'm a geek all in all. But anyways, let's go back to 2006 back in Brussels. This is 10 years ago, my first DrupalCon. You can actually spot me very much in the middle of the picture. That was 10 years ago, and there's one lesson I learned back then. There's that designers and developers are like two very different breeds. And one of the ways that Drupal, that I've learned now over 10 years, Drupal is actually built by engineers for developers, and the problem with that is that developers don't really care about design or the front end, as some people call it, unless it's JavaScript. Then it's getting really not interesting. It seems like nobody kind of understands or get the idea of markup and CSS is actually what, at the end of the day, no matter how we move it around, is what's going to create the final product. Because a world without a theme is actually this. A flat JSON feed. That's the only other thing you can get out of Drupal. That would be like a JSON feed. But how does that look if you don't have a theme on it? It looks like this. There's nothing there because you just have data. You don't have any visual presentation of it, and the visual presentation actually what sells a product at the end. So that's why I'm very focused on building these themes, because that is how we present our website and why it became so important for us to build a better front-end system, which was Twig. Because there's a small little light at the end of this darkness, and that is Drupal 8 or Drupal 8 with Twig in it. If we go back 4 years ago, you can see this is from DrupalCon in Munich. You can see at least 3 prominent Drupal members there, where we had this big discussion on what we wanted to do, and actually 6 months later we actually got a backhand 2012. We got this new theme system in, and one of the key points we want to have in this theme system was this designer-friendly theme system. That is kind of the key to all of this. Why did we even put Twig into Drupal core? And the reason for that is basically we want to have a system that's easy to use for designers. It's not developer focused, it's focused on the quote-unquote web designer. So before we go into this, if you come from the Drupal 7 world, a lot of us, I guess, comes from that. But there's one thing we have to do before we can get into these 21 things I've learned over the last 10 years, and that is unlearn everything. Actually, forget about Drupal 7. That is the most important thing. So right now, I want to have you to take a look at the next screen. I'm going to show up this. And then just forget about it. Forget everything about Drupal 7, because Drupal 7 has one thing in it. It has a Stockholm syndrome. Stockholm syndrome is what happens when you've been captured by been taken over, you've been captured, and you begin to identify with things you actually know is wrong, like divisions, which was a feature in Drupal 8, Drupal 7, 5,000 lines of PHP template was okay, class soup, there was as many classes as possible. All these things were seen in the world of Drupal 7 as a feature. It was not an issue, and we had themers even defending these things, saying, oh, this is actually a good thing because you can just build whatever on top of it. Anybody came outside of Drupal had another opinion about it. So that is the first thing. You need to unlearn all these things. This is not good practice. This is actually bad practice. That's just what happens when you develop and develop and develop and never stop up. So the second thing is you're going to learn before we go into this, is how Twig actually works. And this is the Twig basics. There's 3 commands you need to learn. The first one is curly bracket and a hashtag, and that is how you comment out your Twig code. The second one is the variable. That is how you print out any variables that's in the system. It's like the double curly brackets, and then you have the curly bracket and the percentage. And that is when you begin to do functions. So if a for loop or an if else command, stuff like that. So we actually have enough inside the Twig system to actually be able to build all the things that we want to build, and also to command the code around, which is a really good thing. But the good thing here, even better, is that you don't have the power to go and do like MySQL calls or other stuff like that. You can only work with the data that you get presented. And that is a really, really good thing, because we have a thing called security that we kind of take serious here in the world of Drupal. So first of all, when you start out a new Drupal thing, Drupal site, you want to build it, you build it on something. You build it actually on a base theme. And that's kind of the first thing it's important to understand. There's 2 different base themes you're going to build up. You're either going to build up on base theme called stable or classy. These 2 things comes out of Drupal core. And stable and classy, and then on stable and classy, you can then add in whatever kind of contrib themes you want to do. You might want to use Zen, you might want to use Bootstrap, which are 2 very popular building blocks, which is then building on the top of Drupal core. And then you can add in whatever theme. You can also just go directly to stable or classy. It doesn't really matter. And the reason we have these base themes is to separate ourselves from the Drupal core. So here's Drupal 8 out of the box. And what we did with the stable theme is we cloned all of the template codes out of Drupal 8, because in Drupal 8 everything that used to be a function is now a template. So there's a lot of templates. But first we did was we cloned Drupal 8, all of the code in there, and then we put that into a theme called stable. And stable is the templates as they are defined by 8.0. By defining them as 8.0 means that we can now begin to fix everything that didn't get fixed before we released Drupal 8.0 a year ago. So let's look at this. Like, this is 8.0, right? If you have an unordered list, it has a class called inline. That's still hard coded into the code. I want to be able to change that further down the road. So let's say like in 8.3, we actually get a patch in that removes this class from Drupal core in 8.3. But if your theme is relying on this class in core, if you're relying on this class, then your stuff is not going to work. But if you rely on stable instead, that's where you can rely on the code. The code is not going to change. The markup is not going to change. So basically, stable is protecting us and protecting the markup of the CSS from changes inside of the code and inside of core. And what stable does is giving you the absolute minimum of markup and classes that can be in there. So if you want to have as minimal approach to markup and CSS as possible, you will go with stable. If you want to have like all kind of basic classes and basic ideas, you would go with classy. Classy is built on BEM naming and SMAX structure, so it's kind of built on industry standards, industry standard way of naming things and working with things in the CSS. So, but then when you go over to build your own theme, what you can do then is like now, because everything is a template, you can change everything as you want them to. The last thing is you can actually say you just want to use Drupal core as your base theme. The problem there is like if you have your base theme set to false, the potential of your theme will actually break when we change stuff in Drupal core is fairly high. So the idea here is like Drupal 8 will change how it works. So don't go out and do false. Always go with classy or stable, and then go from there. If you download the base themes as you want to work with them or the frameworks, do yourself a favor and just check that they do this right, because you don't want to have like keep scoring on multiple levels. If you want to learn more about this, go and read my blog post about it, or go into the theme guide as well. These are the links for it. So, second of the things we're going to go through is debugging and how you're going to debug Drupal 8. So, first of all, you have settings local. You want to do that. You're going to look into a service YAML file and settings local. These are the two files you want to go in. As you can see here, I'm pointing to a service file, and I'm setting system performance CSS preprocess and JavaScript preprocess to false, both of these things. When you set these files up, what basically they're going to do is they're going to take your local development service file and your local settings, and then when you're working local on your stuff, you can actually get, you don't have to like override everything. Your stuff is going to be not going to be compressed. CSS and JavaScript. If you really want to see what goes on, you can even go in here and take the parameters to Twig config. If you do that in development services YAML file, if you set debug to true and auto reload to false and catch to false, actually the debug thing, then you're going to get this out. So every time you go in and you look into your source code of Drupal 8 now, what it's going to print out is all of the templates and where they live. And the good thing about this is now you can actually figure out what templates you want to work with. And even better here, what it also shows us is the path to the active template. So if you want to know where the template is at, you can actually find it just by here. If you go one step back, as you can see, there's an X outside of node, and the rest of them have a star. The X define what template file is actually being used now. And in Drupal 8, everything is a template. So now every piece of markup that you look for, you can pretty much find, and you can work around with it. If you hate that you're gonna fill up your markup with all these things, download Drupal template helper to your Chrome. That little tool is going to give you a view like this, as you can see here on the screen as well as here, and you can see how you actually get your markup printed out directly as you want to, and then you can see your templates and what kind of templates you're going to use. This is my way of naming my templates. It's very long, kind of. I'm going to come into that a little bit later, how to do that. Besides that, get Drush, install Drush as well. And get Kint. The good thing about Kint is that gives you a view into how into everything that Drupal 8 puts out. There's even another module called Search Kint that can help you search through all of your existing variables. One thing though you should be aware of here is like that Kint, because there's so much data coming out of how Drupal puts stuff out, that this can be fairly heavy. So I would suggest that you like pump up your PHP, go into PHP ini file and pump up the memory there. And also follow the discussion that we have on our Drupal Twig Slack. There's going to be a link on that later on. There's a lot of some work we're putting in right now to help people doing debugging better. But Kint is kind of like the de facto way right now to fix stuff out. There's going to come a few other concepts for it later on. All right. Part 3 is template and template suggestions. So as I said, like everything here is a template. If you look into my templates here, this is the classic theme. You can see how they're like defined up in different regions. You have block, you have content, in data set, layouts, and so forth. That is to organize them because we have about 140 templates out of Drupal core just when you start your site up. So having a way of naming your templates is getting really, really important. As you can see here, these are the default ideas on template suggestions that you get. What I do now is I'm actually grouping my templates. And I group my templates kind of based on the way like Smacks is grouping the templates, but it's not templates, sorry, it's CSS files. So what I'm doing is in my templates folder, I have a base, I have a components, I have layouts, I have, if I built the style guide, I put my style guide in there as well. And inside my components, I put all the other elements in there, and I put all my layouts in. If you look at how Smacks does it, you can see it's exactly the same way of thinking that I'm putting in here. The good thing is you can put your templates wherever you want to in your theme, so you can create all kinds of different template structures that you want to. So if you want to build your theme in another way, or you want to like have another way of thinking, that you can totally do that just as you want to. It's not like locked down into do one way. And this is a way of how I can begin to like take each part of my Drupal site and really control each element of it, instead of just hoping that a template somewhere is going to take care of it. It's like each little element I'm like working really hard on. The thing you should be knowing here is like it really matters where you put your templates. So let's say I have 2 Node HTML.Twig templates inside of my theme. Drupal, what it does, it is read through all of your directories, and then it takes the first one it hits. So if you want to make sure that I have my templates down on my set folder, and I want to have that to be overwritten instead of my node templates as in my A folder, then I should actually rename that in a way that has a higher value, and you can see that value when you get the list of all the template suggestions. So if I call that node-foo, then suddenly that gets a higher value, and now Drupal will take that. Actually, a variation I came up with here was like separating each part. So let's say I have a field and a bundle and a type. I can then like separate them with 3 dashes and then 2 dashes for each name and value, because the value by itself have 1 dash. That do create very long template names. The good thing is that these template names get extremely specific, and it gets really, really easy to figure out where they're at, because you can see what kind of field is it, what kind of bundle, and the bundle would be like article or like what kind of content type. And then let's say it's a field name for a text field, then I can see it's this field is inside of this bundle, and this is the type for it. So you can become very specific on what you need and when you need it. And then you can group them the way you want to do that. If you want to work with that, you go into hook theme suggestions, hook alters. You can put that into your .theme folder, .theme file, sorry, not folder. And your .theme file is actually where we used to, what we have in Drupal 7 was our PHP template is now called .theme. And that's where you're going to put all that stuff in. So an example for this would be my vanilla theme here. So you can see it's called function vanilla theme suggestion field alter. So that's for my fields, and then I begin to build each one of them up. It ends up with having these very long names: field dash dash node, triple dash bundle article, and then type text long or what kind of view mode and so forth. But now I can control my markup exactly the way I want to, instead of like hoping that I have like markup that is so generic that I can reuse it all over, and that kind of will end up in a mess. This is of course my way of like how I like to work with stuff. And that makes it really simple when I begin to like, here's an example of a code viewer I built for paragraphs. And as you can see, I have field, paragraphs, bundle, code, type, string, name, field, code, file name. Whoo! It's a long name, but this name is very, very unique. So now I don't by accident suddenly get to override another template file that was somewhere else in my theme. Because as I said before, we have about 140, probably 150 templates before you get out the door. So your chance of overriding stuff can become fairly large. And I have more than once like been looking for the field dash paragraph dash fields as a template name because I thought that was unique, and it's not. So try to rethink what you do, try to pre-think what you do, and look like into the future and like see, okay, is this going to be a reusable element, or is this going to be very unique to this thing? Build every element as a unique element. Think of it as a component and go with that. So probably the biggest things for me in Drupal 8 were actually us cleaning up the widgets for fields, and that was a journey a few of us was in for a long time. I used more than one night actually not sleeping trying to figure out how to solve this issue. The good thing about the field template now is like completely cleaned up. It looks a little bit more scary, but there's a reason for that. Because fields, as you can see here, you have a node, and inside of that node, you have all kinds of different fields. And some of the fields can be reused by multiple nodes. So how do we define these? Well, first of all, we have the field HTML.twig file. This is like the mother node of everything. But before we look at that file, I want to look into what a field actually is. Field is basically this. It's a label and a value. That's it. But there's a little bit more to it. It could be a single value. It could be a single value with a label. It could be multiple values with no labels, or multiple values with a label. So now we have 4 different variations of it. But if you look into this instead, it's 4 different patterns that we have. So when we go into our field template, and it looks like this, and you would probably be like, ooh, what goes on here? Well, if I remove the code instead and we go like this, you can now see here's our patterns. So what we do first, if we say first we do the curly brackets percentage, so we now have a function. So it says if, not a function, but we have logic in here. We said if the label is hidden, well, that's the whole first part, right? And then test if there's multiple values. Is this a multiple field? Well, then use this pattern, else use the other pattern. Else, if the label isn't hidden, so there's a label, well then use the label and the field, or the label and multiple fields. So you have now defined up like that. That begins to make it way, way easier, because now we can begin to define markup as we want to. So if I only have a label, if I only have a value and no label, why would I print out, you know, a wrapper div to a label that's not even there? So I can like remove that. Same thing if you come down to having a bunch of data with a label on. Well, maybe it needs a section tag. It needs another tag to describe what goes on into it. We don't try to force everything into be one thing. These are separate elements. So basically, you can end up having, you know, your field basically just being a div with these attributes on, and then have your end div, you could, or an article, or whatever you want to have to put into it. You can do these things now without having to, you know, take a fork and stab it into your eyes and hope the stuff will actually work out. So inside of the view, inside of the field, we have loops, and loops is kind of how we control the field data. So if you look at this here, like, these are how I would look through an item. So this would be like a field item. So let's look at the first part here. If loop first, well, this is the first time you run through the data, so this is what the first part of the data would come out. Or loop last. So, and as you can see, it says else if loop dot last. This is the loop value, and then you can do these dot notations in to like call in each part of it. Loop last would be the last loop. Loop index is how you count inside of a loop. So let's say I want to have the second element that's counted out here. And by the way, because this is written for actually for normal human beings and not nerds, we don't start by counting 0 as our first element. We actually count by 1 first, which I know that like every developer in the world goes like, oh, you cannot do that. 0 is the first part. Well, if I ask my 6-year-old daughter what the first number is, she will go with 1. So we're trying to like have a little bit of normal logic into this. You can also count reverse. So if you do ref index, you can say give me the second last or like the fifth last element, do something with that. And then of course you have always the default, what is my default value. So you have basically you have loop first, loop last, loop index, and loop ref index. These are the elements you need to. So let me show you a little example of this. This is an example for just a loop of a field, has a lot of data into it, and it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. So what I want to do here is I want to do something. I want to change the markup completely when it comes to number 8. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go up and say if loop index is equal 8. I'm going to now take the data here. First, I put in my default data, just so we know that this is the default. As you can see, here's my comment. So when I come into my code a little bit later, I can actually understand what goes on. So this was the joke, as always, like when is Drupal 8 ready? We now know it's been ready for a year, but this is still fixed as the example. So what I'm doing now, the whole idea here is I want to do, when I have this data, this field, and I want to change something, and say if there's an 8th value, I want to change the markup completely. I don't even want to print out the data that comes out of it. I just want to do something different. Like this. So you can change your element, your fields, your element every time you want to. You don't have to like go around and wait for it. It's just you take your data, you go through your loops, and everything in, think of it as every field, it's a loop of data that you go through, and then you can work into it. Okay. So I said 150 or 135 templates is there at least in Drupal 8. And that's not counting the last couple of templates coming in. So a way of getting around these templates is to actually do content.field name and then do 0 and then take the markup. That is if you just want to get the data out. The 0 here is important because that is so you actually get out the data, and the markup here is the printed save markup that it gets out. And the reason for that would be like, let's say you have a template where that template is very important. This is my code viewer. So here it's very important for me to get out get out the code class equals language YAML. I need to print that out to make this script work. So how I do this, as you can see, I do a spaceless to not have any space in it. But spaces, that's a small little sneaky command Twig has. So if you want to remove all white space, you can do spaces, wrap your data in that, and then it's going to be printed out without any spaces. But as you can see here, I do code class, and then I do put in a class called language dash, and then content.field language.0 markup. So now I take the data that I put into Drupal and wrap that out directly into the template that I want to inside of my inside of my node instead of having it all other places. Right. So you saw these selectors. So let's look into them. The CSS selector, and this is where, to me, this is the other big thing that we got in. Like all classes now are controlled inside of your template. Don't ever put a class name inside of a preprocess, because that's not where it should live. It should live inside of your template, so you can find it, you can model your CSS, because your CSS and your markup is exactly where you want to build all these things, right? So as you can see here I have the first line here says node, then you have node dash type, and then you have the tilde. And tilde then adds in the data for it, and you can test on it, say if an element is promoted, if it's sticky, you can give questions, give answers to it, so you can like build up all of your attributes. And if you look down the last line, it says article, attributes of add class and classes. When you build that up, that's when we have how you build up all of your markup. So first of all, how you can do this. So I use a command called set, and set foo. Now I set a variable called foo, and says, okay, foo is now equal to Drupal 8. Foo is the best. That's my Twig template, right, in blue. So that will print out Drupal 8 is the best. So basically, what I can do now is I can do with the set, I can set a variable inside of Drupal. So it will have BAM, or I can have it can be an array instead. So I set array, which is of course a variable, but now I can have foo and bar inside of it. So if I have my tilde, foo tilde bar, that will give me foo bar. So if I create some classes here, I do set classes, node dash type, then I add in the tilde to add in my node.bundle. My node bundle would then be the name of the node bundle, and then I do a pipe, and the pipe is kind of a way that is kind of where you can add functions in on data that do on variables. So clean class will clean up that variable, the data that comes out of it. So that string will be cleaned up and make sure that if it was a space on it, or if it starts with a number and so forth, all of these like CSS rules we have, then that would be removed. So you have class, now my classes variable will become node dash type dash article. And that would be like the way you can now define each of your CSS classes. Same thing, you can do a question on this. As I said, node dot is promoted. So now it says, is this node promoted? This is just variables that we know Drupal has inside of it. If it's promoted, well, then add out promoted. Else, add in no promo. Do stuff that. Never use, as you can see here, you can now add in, you can completely control your class inside of your template files. Not inside of a theme file or a PHP file somewhere, but inside of your template language where it should be. Never use preprocess to set a class. Always set a variable and then have that variable to be turned into a class, so you later on can change your classes, because your class names is very, very important. They're very important in the way we write our CSS. And your CSS is an architecture. And it's kind of like not using the right function names if you're a developer, or misspelling everything how you do it. It do really matters how we build our CSS class, because that is our architecture. That's how our structure is later on. And as big as Drupal projects turns out to be, we need to be able to control these very specific. So never use preprocess to set a class, set as a variable. So like this, you have a theme name, you have a preprocess for foo, then you do a variables, add in your node ID if that's what you want to have in, and then you can print out that nit, and that nit variable we can use then to create whatever we want to. We can also like put logic into it. We can do so much more from our templates if you do it like that. If you just set a class name, you have defined a thing we cannot change later. That is a bad practice. So pretty please don't do that. So attributes now begin to be really exciting. So attributes, again, if you're inside of our field, what we have there is an attribute. What does that have? It's like data, it's area elements, and it's your classes or your IDs. And we can do stuff with that. First of all, we can add a class, as we talked right before. I do a set classes, I have my field, I have my field name, and I clean up my classes. Then in my attributes, I have my rabbit, my markup, piece of markup, then I do attributes.add class, and then I add in my variable, which is called classes here, and then now I can get out these different tags. That is one thing. You can also remove a class. Why would I remove a class? Well, here's like an old school joke for me. I'm an old school metalhead, right? So of course I hate Nickelback, because we just do. It's also kind of a standing joke. But let's say we have a module called Bad Canadian. Bad Canadian, what it does this really, really nasty thing of adding in a Nickelback class inside of your Drupal side, and you don't want to have that, of course. So here's how Drupal adds in all the classes. So core by default adds in like the basic most like needed classes, like is visible. Then you have modules, and modules can add in classes as well. As you can see here, this module do a bad thing. It do a var attributes, and then it use an add class. Good thing is that now it's add classes again. Now we can do something. Now from our theme, what we can do attributes.add class. We can add in our own classes, or even better, we can do an attributes.remove. Attributes.remove, then we can remove that single element that we don't want to have. In this time, it's Nickelback. So attributes.remove, remove that. So now my bad Canadian module can actually do, like, by do attributes.remove class Nickelback, we can remove that class completely. And you can, there's another thing now we're talking about classes. If you ever use JavaScript for anything of your classes, please remember to do a JS prefix on them, so we all understand when we come later into the process that this is a JavaScript needed class, so we don't remove them. Classes should only be used for presentable layers, colors, how stuff looks, not functionality like JavaScript. If it's used with JavaScript, you don't use a data attributes, do a JS prefix for it. It will save you and everybody else a ton of time. And that would be really, really nice. So do that. And then if you have a class that we actually need colors on it, just use the same class name for it. Then we know exactly what goes on. And believe me, you will also know what goes on. And even that you think you're the best developer on earth that can remember everything, believe me, I've been in this industry for now 20 years. And there's one thing we can't remember is what we did yesterday or 6 months ago. And if you look at your code from a month ago, if it's not a complete mess, then you're going to be a little bit sad. That also means that you didn't evolve. So do this. You will thank your future self will thank you for this. Always when you have a variable name you print out, do a pipe clean class on it, because in that way you're not going to have class names but suddenly you have spaces in them and all kinds of other things. It's just a sneaky thing. So with attributes, we have a div class called Nickelback, and now in our templates, what we can do with that is div attributes, that remove class Nickelback. That's going to be removed. We're going to add in, epic Canadian rock band Rush instead. We can even set an attributes on top of it. I can add in an ID if I want to have that. If I need this element. And then I'm going to end up having this printed out instead. So this is what Drupal started printing out, div class equal Nickelback. And after I took that, and I now can change all the attributes that comes in and out. I can text on them, I can fill on them. I can even say if it has a class. And now I can print out these elements. Whew, good. So search. Search is another place where you can see I'm doing the same thing with, like, I do all kinds of set attributes, remove attributes, so I can do these kind of things. Let's see if the video will run. And this is just an example of what we actually can do now right out of the box. There's no reason to have a module for this. You can just add in the elements and add in the classes. This only works, by the way, in good old Safari right now, but I'm pretty sure that other browsers are going to come on with it. Another thing that's going to happen, of course, is going to have to cowboy our code at some point. So you want to add a class in when the node ID is 158. You want to add that into your body, something like this. So what you can do there is go to the pre-process, as I talked about earlier on. Do a pre-process, but then set the variables. You can see I do test on the route for it, see where it's at, see what node ID it is, get that, and then now I'll open my body class. I do set body class in my HTML.twig file, and I do a node ID, say if that's 158, add this class in. So now I'm going to get this, and now bam, it's going to be hot pink. Woo. So next thing here is libraries. So Drupal 8, how we're defining and adding CSS, and JavaScript is by adding in libraries. Modules do the same thing, so now we're actually talking the same language. So you have your info file, and in your info file for your theme, you're going to define libraries. And the first libraries you want to define is your global library. Basically, libraries is the idea of like having JavaScript and CSS like combined into little libraries, so you can call them in when you need them. Say a library for all your form data, a library for your node, or a library for your input, your login, whatever it can be. And then you can you set up your library. You see a global version that has CSS inside. There's a layout, components, and so forth. And the way it's all defined here is, as you can see, it's like base, layouts, components, state, and theme. It's all grouped by SMAC's way of like SMAC's thinking. If you do not know about SMAC's, please go and Google it. go online and read the book that Jonathan Snook wrote about Smacks. Smacks is a really, really good way of organizing CSS, especially when you work on big sites, and Drupal by default is big sites, so you really want to do this. Another thing you can do when you want to define how your CSS files are going to be printed out is you have your base and you have your foo.css. This is my CSS file. Do a colon and curly brackets. Then you can sit and wait for it. That's the way you can like push your CSS back and forth. If you want to use external data like Google fonts, you add that inside in your library. Then you just print out the whole URL for it, and then you just do type external. Then Google's going to put that in. You can even add in media queries as well. Here's for my print style sheets. Another thing is, if you want to add in dependency, let's say your theme actually needs jQuery, well then you have to define and say, please use jQuery. This dependency is now calling the core library jQuery says use this. So if you don't want to have these 82 kilos of love that you will put out, well then just remove it from your theme. So when you run your theme without any admin interface elements in it, it's going to be without these without jQuery because you don't need it. You also remove libraries, so if there's a library you don't need, like let's say here I don't want to use Modernizer, I want to use my own version of Modernizer, or what I want to do, then I can do call/Modernizer, false, and then it's not going to be loaded. That's how you're gonna kill elements. Style sheets removed, you can do that as well. If you find a style sheet you cannot figure out where it comes from, you can remove that as well. Use style sheet remove inside your info file. It is those deprecated in Drupal 9, so you should actually go in and modify the libraries instead. Sometimes you want to do it a little bit faster. Inline libraries is another sneaky thing that we can do. Inline libraries is really, really handy as you can attach a library to a template file. So in this example, here's I have my code snippet and my library code snippets. I really want to add that in. Here's my snippets. As you can see, it has 2 CSS files and a JavaScript file, but I only want to load them in on this specific paragraph/code/paragraph code. Only on this one place I want to add it in. Then I can use this, add in the attached library. So I attach a library to a template file. So that template file is loaded. That's when my library is going to call in, and my library then calls in the correct CSS files. So now you have complete controls over it. When you do attach library, remember to use active theme into your name. So you don't end up having, if you're like copying one template to another, then you're going to end up having like name issues, and that can be really, really frustrating. So attach library, active theme, and then the name of the library you want to add in. So this is kind of way how I build up my code snippets. 10 minutes left. Let's see here. So SVG inline is another sneaky thing. So if you do this code here, include themes and then your theme name and then your icon or your SVG file, what I'm actually going to do is this. It's just going to take that whole SVG file and pump it directly, and you don't have to do all kinds of sneaky things. Twig will just take that and put it directly in. So now you can begin to have like the holy grail of SVG where you can control it with CSS, and that is really, really exciting. Twig block is another thing though. So in Drupal we have blocks, we've always had blocks, but in Twig they also have a block. So that's why we call them a Twig block, to not having to compete with Drupal blocks. Twig block is basically your ability inside of a page template. You can take that page template and then you can inject another template on top of it. So let's say here I have my page template, but if I'm on the front page, I want to add in an element for it. So I will create a new page that's called page-front. This is, you can figure out what names you want to override with by going and look at the template suggestion. So every time you have a template suggestion, you can then do an extend on that, and then you can use that name. So if it says, hey, here I should actually use my page, I'm now on the -front page. Well, if you do an extend on that page, then Drupal will say, or Twig will say, hey, I should call in page front. Actually, I'm going to call in page HTML.twig, and then I'm going to look for what kind of blocks that are there. As you can see up there on the page HTML file, this one, you have your Twig block, and then you have a block hero, and so now you can inject that part. So this block hero I can exchange. So when I get my page front called in, I'm still going to use my page HTML Twig file, but now I can inject the markup that I put in here. So if this was the front page, it will say Drupal 8 hero right there. Let's just see like a really fast example of this, if I can like get it to. So here I got my page HTML, and I have a front page message. I want to add in, it says welcome to my home page. Hey, I'm that old so I can remember when we called it a home page. I do a draw CR, bam. And you can see here when I'm on my front page, it gives me like, welcome to my home page, but when I go to the next page, it doesn't do that, and I still use the same page template. So if you have a little snippet you want to fix out, you can do it that way. So menus we can actually work with now. Menus are now cooked down into one template file. I know that's really exciting for us who've been working in Drupal 7, 6, and 5, and 4.7. So the menu, what I can do here is, if you look at this, what I want to do is I want to use SVG files for it, and I want to like make it a little bit more sneaky. So if you look here into a single file, what I have here is I'm using the description for this example just for the fun of it, and I'm using a pipe to kind of create a variable inside of my Drupal theme without creating this variable. I know this is a little bit dirty, but this is just a quick way to sometimes add in that extra piece of data without having to build everything again and again and again. So let's look at this and how it's actually done. Let's see. Yes. Okay. So let's jump in to see what goes on here. So as you can see, I have here my markup here is defined. I have a menu icon as an SVG box. This is like newest SVG stuff. That's really handy. And this is the markup that comes out. This is how I'm building it. So basically what we want to have is I want to have the isActive class. On menus, isActive class is going to inject it by JavaScript. So this is a class you cannot like modify. It's just how it is. One of the little limitations. What I'm doing here, I'm doing SVG inlines. I'm using the use element. And that way I'm actually calling in one file, one SVG file. So I'm kind of using it as we would use a sprite, as we all know, and maybe love, maybe hate. But this is kind of like how we use SVG file. And then I'm using a pure CSS tooltip to like minimize any kind of JavaScript that I actually needed. So here's my menu icons, one file for it, all of my menu icons, and here's the markup for it. So SVG files, if you don't know that, that's basically just markup. You can actually write your SVG files out in hand if you want to do that. There's no need to do that right now. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking into my tooltip or my description that says, okay, here I have my tooltip, and here I'm going to use the icon name as this next part. Because that icon name, as you can see, it says rocket, and I have my rocket down here, so I can call that in. That's by using use. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking the description, I'm splitting it, I'm taking the ID, calling in the markup and moving it around. It's going to be a little bit fast. It's better to like watch later on if you really want to see this. So first I do a set description, set a variable, do item original link get description, and then I split it by the pipe. And then I now have two elements. I have a link title description .0 and SVG icon description 1. Then I do my markup, and here I do set another variable, my SVG icon. The reason I do this variable is I want to pass this in to an inline template later on. So this is just my markup on menu icons with a menu title. As you can see, these are just previous defined. Item.title is the title that comes out of Drupal by default. And then the next time is my inline template. And the reason for my inline template is that SVG is not on the whitelist inside of Drupal 8 as it is right now. Problem with that is that I really want to use SVG because SVG is fucking awesome. But SVGs as being elements that are uploaded is not going to work that way. So that's why I'm using an inline template. That's kind of a way how we can sneak it around. I can use my local SVG files, but still like munch them into the menu system. It's a little bit filthy, but you know, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And then very last, I render the link. I do link, and then I call the menu link. As you can see, that's my inline template. I render that. My item.url is just my item.url. And then I have a class for my CSS balloon, data balloon, using my link title and pass that in as well, and then the direction for it. And that ends up giving me this. This is my elements I split. My icon name, splitting it up here, or my markup, the markup here again. And we're going to use the SVG use because then I can call them in each element for it. And use my inline template and add the attributes to the link. I do really want to prefer that we could just do that with set a variable and do markup and then with the SVG files into it and then do a link render on that variables. But right now Drupal security says no. which is a little bit sad. I hope we can get that fixed later on. Anyways, this is how you can actually inject SVG and use for SVGs inside of your menu, so you can actually control your menu completely. So next point is layouts. Layouts is like how we can do that inside of a node template. Here's an exciting thing. So you have a variable here. In this example, my variable is called content, and then I use the pipe. And inside of the pipe, I use a Twig function called without. And without, what that does, it takes all the variables, everything that's inside of content, but then you can remove an element for it each time. So this would be like the field name or all other variables that's in there. So let's say my layout looks like this. I have a content, image, and tags. It should go like this. If I just print out content, it will go like this. Well, I could then try to moderate that around with some CSS. I do it in all kinds of strange ways. But if I have a CSS framework that already can do these things and have like layout control built in, why wouldn't I just spread that stuff out and like move my markup as I want to instead of having Drupal define it for me? So if I do content pipe without, then I can like still print the content without the image, and then I print out the image by doing content.image instead. So that dot will drop into the content variable and find other variables that are inside of it. So, and the same thing, if I do content without image and without tags, as you can see, I can then begin to print them out as they want to themselves. The beauty of this is then later on, when you get a new field into it, well, then, that new field is not going to destroy everything for you. It's just going to be there, and that's all good. So here I have here's a quick example: content without links, field, images. This is all of my data. Then I have my right element, and then I have the stuff on my top. You don't have to like put it in all kinds of magic places. The next thing is, and this is like one of my little favorite things, that sometimes there's stuff that you just want to kill or remove out of your templates. And what I do is I'm actually printing them out inside of a small little folder, inside of my base folder called cleanup. And in cleanup, that's where I put all of these elements that I don't want to use later on. I don't use the regions at all. I don't have any use for them. I think it's a remnant of Drupal 7 thinking, not how I do build my themes. So I still keep my template in there, but I just put it over in cleanup so I actually know where it's at. So I have an idea of where did I clean up stuff, where did I remove stuff. Again, telling my future self that I probably messed up somehow. Next thing is filters and auto escape. So auto escape is really, really good because it makes our code really secure. It can also be a little bit of pain sometimes. So, if I want to do uppercase and everything, I know I can do this with CSS, but as an example of what you can do with a filter. So I want to do uppercase on everything, and that's all good. You can do filter upper, and then it's going to take the data that's inside of the two Twig elements, and then put that into upper. But you can also do that with a pipe. The problem with this pipe is that it doesn't work directly out of the box. It actually have to drop into one next layer. So you're going to do item.content, then takes the text from that, and then do an upper for it. Now it's getting auto escaped. God damn it, what are you going to do then? Well, you can do a strip tag. So now I have my item content, the text from that. I do an upper on it, and as you can see, I can add in multiple filters for it. So now I strip my tags out. Now I still have my spacings, and I have my start and end tags, my ands, which is really frustrating. So how are they going to do that? Well, you can replace them. As you can see, I do a replace. You can actually do a search and replace directly inside of each variable by these filters. So now I can go like this, and I can actually make it uppercase. That is one of the little headaches you sometimes head into. What I would suggest is you read up on what the documentation says on the Twig side, and then jump online, jump into our discussion forum, actually our Slack channel, and talk with people there, because a lot of us have found some of these things that it's a little bit different than it would be in normal Twig, but we're getting there. And again, I would love to just do content pineapple, but again, it's a big no from Drupal security. The reason for that is basically, always escaping everything, so we know our data is always secure. Of course, it's frustrating for me as a person who just want to get my stuff done, but I don't want to end up having my site to be like insecure. That wouldn't be good for anybody. 20th thing I've learned was a new exciting thing. I know this is kind of stupid, but this is the screenshots. So Drupals, back in the good old days, we could just do a screenshot that was called screenshot. That was it. Now we can actually add in whatever kind of file we want to have. So here's my dance.gif. Bam. This is just a dumb little GIF, but what we can actually use this for is on our overview pages on our themes. We can actually now begin to, maybe showing 3 or 4 different views of your theme looks and so forth. It's just a small little thing. And here in this 21st thing, I actually learned of working in Drupal for 10 years and using even just as many years of working inside of the theme or the design world of Drupal is that what I've learned was nobody told us what to do. And that was not designers or themers telling us, it was actually developers. And this is me and WebTech out of the shooting range in Denver like 4 or 5 years ago, where WebTech told me, as we were talking about Drupal and how to build stuff, that nobody told us what to do. We just built our markup. We just built the elements in a way we thought you themers wanted it. We had no idea which way or how it would go. We just thought that you needed these 20 divs or these 10 classes and you can do it. And the problem is, again, designers and developers, we're not thinking the same way. Designers maybe looking themselves as being a little bit more fancy, and we know all developers are sitting in their basements and learning with their computers, and we should not have that in Drupal. We should actually begin to grow out of this and begin to listen and think about how we can make each other's life better. Because basically, as I see it, you have design, you have your theme, you have your code, and we're doing 3 different things. In design, it's make the logo bigger. In theme, it's like the browser hell. And from a coder perspective, it's like making all of this stuff work. And then, of course, we have the DevOps, and the DevOps, they just do something with servers. And I know that the finest thing is that they just say no, because we know communication between us is hard. It's a thing we should change in Drupal, right? So that is almost my last thing. Well, one more last thing. So as I said, I have a new company called Theme Machine, and what we're doing is themes and only themes, and I'm working on admin themes right now. An admin theme that's out at this point. It's called Flat Earth, and a Flat Earth looks like something like this. The idea is to begin to rebuild a better UI for the editors, and for us as users of Drupal. I've been trying to really munch around for it for a long time. It is a commercial theme or a premium theme, or what we call it. Also, an idea of how can we create inside the world of Drupal. We have companies building big ass servers and supporting that, and we want to pay for that, but we cannot, the same way as we do with module development, reuse the themes we're doing all the time, because design is so distinct for each one of them. But anyways, I'm building this. It's out now as an option for you to help me pre-fund. I have a demo of it. If you want to download it, go to tinyurl.com/flatearth-Drupal 8-day. It's a free demo, so you can see normally I would charge you some money for it, but right now I'm charging you your email address, so sign up. I'm of course going to spam you all the way into hell. Now I'm just going to inform you when version 1 is going to come out. My hope is that people want to support this work I'm trying to do with the admin experience. If you want to read more about this, go into my weblog, morten.dk. There's a whole post about what I did and why I'm doing this on morten.dk. Well, actually, this thing kind of happened. On top of this, as I was starting this project out, I'm not building my Flat Earth thing, trying to fund all these things, but I had a big client coming into me for Theme Machine, and after I did this joke at DrupalCon, where Dries couldn't figure out how to do a theme, he mentioned that I said for fun that we could help out with that, and that is now created this new project called 11, which the idea behind 11 is this is the normal way of Drupal's dropping things up from class, and then what we're building now is this 11 theme, and 11 theme is going to be a base theme for admin experience, for better admin experience, to try to change that. It's all built out in Drupal Contrib. It's actually going to be released first on GitHub, so I can hopefully get people who is not so used to the way of Drupal, trying to open up the doors a little bit, thinking more in design, thinking more in less in how nerds work and more in how normal people work. because the nerds, we know you guys can always just change your base theme or your admin theme, but normal users can't do that so much, and there's really a thing we need to work with, and that's actually what I'm doing right now for the time. And then my flat earth is all, of course, going to build on that. So if this is a thing that you think is needed, or please get in contact with me. I do have one big client right now who just funded a lot of the work, but it needs more funding, need more time, need more work. But it's the thing I'm going to do for the next many months, at least the next year. Another thing is Frontend United is a front-end only conference that we've been doing in Drupal for like 6, 7. This is going to be the 7th one. It's going to be in Unlearning Drupal. We have Jonathan Snoop coming and speaking, who is a very brilliant guy talking about CSS. Rachel Andrew, I'm not so sure about. I know she's rad because Frontend United crew is really up on it. I'm just more excited about Jonathan Snoop because he's like one of my heroes of how he wrote the Smacks book. So this is me, Morten EK. I'm the happy web designer, as I call myself. If you want to have the slides for this presentation, I just uploaded them to tinyurl.com/21things in the 8th day. If you want to talk about the Slack that we have, drupaltwig-slack.herokuapp.com, go into there, and then sign up. That is where we talk a lot about Twig stuff. We have like 400 or 500 people now signed up in there. Talk about Twig. We try to help out. Also have a lot of fun. We even have a rant room where you can go in and yell about everything that you get frustrated about. It's usually something about libraries and stuff. But the tone is very relaxed. It's built on the same values as we have in the world of Drupal. We just try to focus it only on Drupal Twig, and that is the thing we want to do. If you want to check out my admin theme, it is not updated yet for 8.2 because so much work has gone in to make 11 work for the last month, so much groundwork. So try it on 8.1, it works there. 8.2, not so much. Hopefully going to get an update out pretty soon, as soon as I got some of the groundwork done. Whew. So 55 minutes, I completely broke my time, I think, but I guess if there's any questions, this would be the time for them.
Oh, thank you so much, Morten.
Yes.
Okay, let me go through the questions quickly. If you have any, please feel free to put them in the questions box on the right-hand side.
Or else, hit me up on Twitter later on, and I do have time just to like sit here and hang around. Or I'm gonna have my hit me up on Twitter as well. Just ping me about these things. This has been like it's very close and very dear to my heart to make this the best experience we can do. So yeah. Anyways, hit me with questions. Let me hear.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for people that want to use right to left themes in Drupal 8?
I have absolutely no idea. What we should do should become better at to actually create our themes to work with everything. And I must admit that me being Western European is another thing I've been focused a lot on. I hope that people who want to test my stuff out and point out where to do that. But else, go into the issue queue and actually put in your theme is not working left to right or right to left, because a theme should be it should be the graphical experience. It should be the user experience for it. That should just be a technical issue for it. So put it an issue to whoever do the themes, but it's not a thing I've kind of thought about. So sorry for that.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for using less or Sass inside a theme that you're building?
Well, actually, I'm old school, so I actually dropped using Sass and less because I'm not building for I mean, if you want to use Sass or less, what I would do is go in and read the documentation for it, and then I know that both John Albin and Mark Carver, who are both the maintainers of John is maintainer of Zen, Mark is of the Bootstrap theme. They love Sass, so they could pretty much help you out with that. See how they have set up their stuff. I know that John's Zen theme has built a lot of things around his setup and how he built everything with Sass, and he's He's doing a lot of things with Node as well. So if that's a thing you really want to go into, go that way. I personally don't write any of my things with Sass or with less. I write vanilla CSS, and I use. I'm like slowly moving in towards using more and more CSS variables and so forth, which means I'm cutting off some browsers as well. But with my current work, I have the luxury to do that. But of course, if you are in less unfortunate situation and you have like support, IE9 or something like that, then it's definitely worth looking into. Else, I would find. I'm working on a Mac normally, and what I think I would there's a native app where you can actually set up your Sass compiling really easy that way. So Sass don't become a burden that you need to like maintain the code around your Sass setup and so forth, because it is an overhead of adding in more tech stuff to your things, and it all depends on how you like to work. I'm trying to make my life as simple as possible, so some of that is kind of like getting killed off.
Final question. Do you have an editor that you recommend for working with Twig? Do you like Sublime, or do you have a preference?
I've worked with Sublime. I work with Atom right now, which I think is really, really good. I am looking a little bit into using Microsoft's code, which to me, as being an old school Mac and really old school open source guy, using a product from Microsoft to do anything on, is really scary. But that's because I'm an old man, and I remember how evil they were, and I'm still pissed off by IE6. But Sublime has native for it. Atom have native for it. I'm pretty sure that Code will have it as well. But Sublime and Atom is excellent text editors and makes a lot of this stuff goes really well. So I would definitely use one of them.
Wonderful. I think that does it for the questions. So I'm going to say thank you very much indeed, Morten. It's been a pleasure listening to you for the last hour.
Yeah, and even that I called off so many of my slides, I managed to get up to 55 minutes. I do not know how I'm doing this.
Oh, you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, and thank you all for listening, especially those guys who came up early this morning. I'm happy that somebody wanted to come and listen to my beautiful morning voice. Oh, I did get pancakes and breakfast with the family, so everything is good. So thank all you guys for guys and girls showing up and coming in here, and have a wonderful rest of your Drupal 8 day, and let's celebrate Drupal 8 and see what happens. And again, anybody have questions, anybody want to get involved with this project, anyone figure out how to do this stuff, don't feel afraid to ping me. Just yell at me, especially ping at me at my my Twitter account. I am more than helpful to help you, push you forward, move you into our community, because all of this work is done because we are together about it. It's not 1 or 2 or 5 persons help. It is a ton of people's help, and we're all in this together, which we can see today. So thank all of you for showing up and listening to me for the last hour.
Cool. Wonderful. Thanks, everyone, and hopefully we can see you at another session throughout today.
Yeah.